Okay, we're recording, and I'm excited to have with me Canadian actor Antonio Cayonne, and he's here today to talk about his successful acting career. He's actually an author too, and he's going to talk about his life and what's next for him, and anything else that we can talk about. You're a restaurant too, right? You own a
Yeah,
restaurant, so.
yeah, I've got a few things on the go.
So welcome. So I want to talk to you first. Now, I understand that it was soccer that you wanted to pursue before acting.
Yeah, I grew up playing soccer. That was like the thing that I did as a kid that took me well into my teens. That at some point I really did believe could turn into something, and you have a different view of things when you're young than you do when you're older. At the time, I worked very hard. At the time, I didn't really understand how it was all connected. And so what I did think was I was never under the illusion that I would be a professional soccer player, partially because that would have meant going to Europe. And, I watched the Premier League growing up in bits and bobs, and like, I wasn't Premier League good. That's certainly not what I thought. Also because the kids who grow up in Europe and other places have a more immediate connection and more immediate access to plays and players and coaches and whatnot and styles of play. So I didn't have all of that. But what I did think was, well, maybe soccer would be what takes me through university, and I would play like Division 1 in the States or Division 2 or something like that. Um, and now, as an adult looking back, I don't know. I don't know if I was that good. Who knows? You know,
Well, yeah. It's what position did you play?
uh, all of them at some point, except for goalie. I started off as a striker when I was a kid. I could play with my left and my right quite proficiently, and so I would end up playing one of the in our system two striker positions. I was also like really fast when I was young, and then and thinking that I would stay fast. As I got older, other kids caught up to me, and so it's not that I slowed down; they sped up. I moved into the midfield because I really liked the potential of being able to control the game. But midfield was probably the most back and forth, side to side kind of motion that existed, and that wasn't where my skill sets lied. I was a little bit better at communicating, and so I ended up moving myself back into defense, and eventually I was the sweeper, and so I would always
Mm.
be the last line of defense between a striker and my goalie, and that was the position that I ended up playing sort of for the latter half of my time playing, and I loved it the most because it was really you were able to see the entire field and communicate things, and you could go on runs. I was still able, like I was a sweeper who was able to score sometimes at that age, and so I quite relished the opportunity to go on runs and hustle back. But there was something really nice about being able to hold a defensive line and be able to affect the play from back there.
Well, coming from a sports background and being on the pitch, I mean, do you think it's helped your soccer career into acting?
It's a good question. I don't know. I think so. I had a pretty wide variety of coaches and more cutthroat and more competitive, and certainly fostered in me a type of competitive nature that I've never lost. Um, I also had coaches who I think were really great with me at teaching me how to work, and I would say that that's probably the most applicable skill set that came out of it was
Mm.
coaches who weren't worried about you being the best at something. It wasn't about getting to the top. It was about being better than the last moment. It was about personal growth. It was about figuring out how to get there. You didn't need to be a star overnight. You needed to look at all of your skill sets and learn how to develop something, how to get really, really micro and say, okay, can I just fix this one thing or improve this one thing is perhaps a better word. So perhaps those two things they're ingrained in me now, and so they're reflective of how I work.
Yeah, so discipline, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, congratulations on your leading role in the Hallmark film Evergreen, Christmas in Evergreen, right? Bells are ringing
Bells are ringing, yeah.
and wow. So I mean, to take us through a script, I mean, it must be like memorize your lines. That's where discipline comes in. So when I talk about sport, it's transferable skills that you have.
Yeah, there
Yeah.
are a lot of them that are transferable. In fact, everybody, I think everybody has their own way of working scripts. Some people start with memory, some people start with story, some people, who knows, everyone kind of has their own pathway. And over the course of the years, my path has changed in many different ways. um, this being my first role that felt like it had a lot of moving pieces, there were a couple of things that I had never done before, that the script afforded me the opportunity to do. One of which was needing to learn a chronology so that you could shoot things out of order. That was something that I had not had the opportunity to have to do at that level. And so my way in, to this script, and to many scripts, is typically story first. I want to understand the whys, and I want to understand. With a script, you don't get a lot of backstory. You get these scenes, and then you kind of have to extrapolate why someone is the way they are, why that interaction happens the way it does. And of course, you're going to have a scene partner who shows up with their kind of interpretation, and you get to meet each other in this moment live, and negotiate a relationship. So with this script, I mean, I had some nerves, and I certainly forced the words into my head just by rote, which isn't typically how I would do it. But sometimes fear drives you to do weird things. But I was lucky that I had a lot of access to Rakia as we were prepping, to Zach and Shari, the writers, and I had a lot of access to script drafts. So I could really get to know the story, and I could wrap my head around the why very well. So by the time I got to set, if we were in a scene, it was rare that I would find myself stuck trying to solve a why question. Um,
Hmm.
and that
Yes.
was really, yeah.
It's a romance, right? I've seen some of the film and
Yeah.
it's great. And but you're one of the few BIPOC actors
Yeah.
in the Hallmark film. And I mean, how does it make you feel that you are representing and you're an inspiration? So how does
Yeah, it is. So over the course of years, it's not that Hallmark hasn't had BIPOC actors in roles. They've been around, and there have been Hallmarks and other movies. I shouldn't just say Hallmarks, other Christmas movies, other networks that might create a movie that's all one thing, like a full black cast. What's more rare, and what we're seeing this year across Hallmark for the first time, and I think some other networks are kind of moving in this direction, but Hallmark has kind of like put a flag in, is that we're seeing end to end diversity, and
mm,
they're not afraid to put a person of color as the lead with a white best friend, for example, which
mm,
typically wouldn't be the model that we've seen in the past. And furthermore, we're seeing love stories where the two men are madly in love and talking about adoption, and I don't even want to use the word normalized, because I feel like that does it a disservice. It focuses on the love story, not on the people engaging in the love story. And for me, there's something really important about that, because if we want to pull up Lin Manuel Miranda's quote at the award ceremony, "Love is love is love is love is love." Like,
yeah.
we need not make the distinction between what the people look like. We want to make the distinction of what the feeling is and what the action is. So from my point of view, uh, Christmas in Evergreen 4 for me is the first time that I've gotten to be a lead. It is one of the, maybe not first times, but notable times that there are two BIPOC leads as the primary love story, in a town that is diverse, that
Mm,
features actors like Holly Robinson Pete alongside Ashley Williams and Barbara Niven in major roles, so that we can see a panorama of what the town truly looks like, and we can see that the town isn't homogenous,
mm,
as most towns, frankly, at this point in the world are not. And so as far as this being like a watershed moment, or a moment that is, focused on change, I'm deeply grateful to be a part of it. And being on the inside, I definitely feel a responsibility to try and tell an authentic story as purely as I can, so that if there's somebody watching at home, A, they can relate to it. B, they can say, oh, you're just like me. Had that not been a thought for them before, now it is. And C, if there are children watching, they can look and see the invitation of, I belong in this world.
Mm. So you play the role as Elliot.
Yeah.
And tell us about the role and what was it like working with the other actors?
Yeah. So Elliot showed up in Christmas in Evergreen 3, and he is Hannah's best friend. And she's played by Rukia Bernard, and that's my co-star. And in Christmas in Evergreen 3, what we discovered is that these two people who have known each other since they were children had feelings for each other, and were afraid to put the friendship in a precarious position of now being wrapped up in a romance, because what if you can't go back? What if we lose the friendship? But they took the leap and they fell in love, and Hallmark is as Hallmark is. So there was a little bit of a happily ever after aspect to it. But we didn't really see enough of their story last year. This year we're picking up with Hannah and Elliot, completely
Mm.
enmeshed. Their lives are as one. They're madly in love, and nothing seems to be able to break that. But they both have aspirations for what they what they can achieve personally, what they want to achieve personally, from a business point of view, from a personal fulfillment point of view. And so what you end up seeing is how their aspirations and how their personal growth becomes an obstacle for their relationship.
Mm. And it's airing December the 6th, right? Is that
December
or in the
the
US?
Is that it? Five. Uh,
Yeah, you I know
yeah.
we can
I
put
always
that
forget
in.
because one of them is in the States and one of them is, and they're back to back in the States and in Canada. I think
So how,
it's Saturday and Sunday of this week.
so how excited are you? I mean, it's just around the corner.
It's amazing. Yeah, I'm very excited. I It's interesting. I've gotten to pop on Zooms, um, with some interviewers who are in the States, and they have access to the Hallmark Channel. Now in Canada, I don't have access to the Hallmark Channel, so I don't actually get to see it in the same way that you would see it if you turned it on. I see I see the networks that are acquiring Hallmark movies. So I'll see little bits of trailers. I'm like, oh, there we are. Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
But we're not getting. I'm not getting the full effect of it. But I got a message recently from a podcaster who I'm friends with, who was like, you guys are playing every other commercial break. Like just so you know, it's fever pitch over here. Like people are really excited, which is great because I'm excited, but I'm alone in this house on my couch with my Christmas tree. Like I don't get to see that side of it. So yeah, I am very excited for like a million reasons. The little kid in me is excited because it's a Christmas movie and I'm a part of it. The actor in me is excited because it is my first lead, and I get to share that with friends and family. I have a little bit of anxiety because you're like, is it good? Did we do okay? Like there are a number of things going on, and they're all they're all fair, but truly at the heart of all of it is an excitement over the gratitude of being a part of it.
That's wonderful. And you're also in Mighty Ducks. It's a TV, right? TV series. So congratulations on that. I mean, my
Thank you.
gosh.
Yeah, as somebody who grew up playing a sport, getting to be a part of this is really cool. Um, yeah, they're essentially like not rebooting it, but they're carrying the franchise through, and they're restarting it for TV, but they're restarting it in 2020. It's not like they're going back and telling the same story necessarily. There are important twists to it that I think are very good, and the cast is held down by like Bombay is back, and you have Dylan Playfair from Letterkenny in it, and you have Lauren Graham from Gilmore Girls. So the cast, it's in good hands. I play one of the hockey parents. Um,
Oh, wow.
which is also nice because like you're there all the time, but you're this may not sound right, but like I spend a lot of time on set watching, because as a parent, that's what you would actually be doing. You're watching your kids. Your kids are the light at the center of everything. And so it's a really nice thing to play supportive, supportive silently in a weird way. It's not an opportunity you often get to make sure that these kids show up as the main characters, and that's something that's really important to me. Like, I want the next generation to shine, and like I get to work with 12, 13, and 14-year-olds who are on screen creating space for their peers, and they don't even understand that they're doing that.
Oh, it's wonderful. My goodness. Like, but you've also been in Prison Break, X-Files, and I know there's lots more. When I
Yeah.
said at the intro at the beginning, we're talking about other things because um, I mean I checked out your website and it has a book, right? You're writing a book. So tell us about that. That's very
Yeah.
interesting.
The writing a book thing, I'm always careful when I talk about it because it's self-published. I didn't publish this, didn't go through like a major publisher or anything. It's not available anywhere other than like through my website. And I have a good friend who is a publisher, and so I'm always like, I did write a book. It exists, and I quite love it, but it hasn't gone through all the steps to be in like Barnes and Noble. Um, I have a 2.5-year-old, and when my wife was pregnant, we got into a conversation around how, as a woman, biologically, her body is pulling her into motherhood, whether she likes it or not. She doesn't get a say in it. She can't opt out of the lower back pain or of how her ankles are feeling today, or the reality of no longer seeing her feet over a belly. Like, biologically, there and hormonally, there's so much happening inside of her that are starting to instruct her uh, in ways to get her to motherhood, um, because the adage is like you become a mother the day you're pregnant, but you become a father the day you hold your child. And we got into a conversation. I was like, I don't agree. I just don't agree with that adage. I think that as a man, you you want to opt in. You want to take those 9 months and make them active, not passive. You don't want this to happen to you. You you want that first day, and this is just me speaking for me. You want that first day where you hold your child to be one that you've been developing the space for the amount of time that your wife has as well. That the two of you are in a partnership, and and there's something really, you know, just, I guess, about saying, if you're going through this, I'm going through this because we're going through this. We're bringing this child into the world, and I want that little human to know that I have been here in lockstep, developing my dadness the whole way. Um, and so I started talking about it with friends as like, I'm currently dadding, right? I'm in the process of like becoming dad, uh, and I did it through writing. I grew up always. I'm just constantly writing. I always have been, and I lean towards like my own forms of poetry depending on what I'm going through. And so what I did was I journaled kind of the 9 months through individual poems, and then I reached out to other fathers who were ahead of me, who had 2-year-olds, 5-year-olds, 10-year-olds, 20-year-olds, and I said, would you share some words on your experience? And I kind of gave them carte blanche. It can be advice, it can be some anecdotal story, whatnot, and I just kind of wedged those in. And I self-published it and bound it and made sure that it was in my house, so that when my wife and I came home from the hospital, I could give her the book. And it wasn't that I wrote it for our child, but I wanted her also to be able to see the experience that she was a part of that was invisible to her.
That's wonderful. I mean, you're a writer, you're an actor, you're an athlete, you own a restaurant.
It
What
was.
else did you do? Or was no, but well, I heard that if you didn't break your ankle or hurt your ankle or both, you wouldn't be acting. Is that right?
I think, well, it's hard to say. I can definitively say that hurting my ankle steered me into acting, but I had been steered there once before, when I was younger. I hosted a show when I was in grade 7, and
Well,
at the end of hosting it, I ended up not pursuing it, for a variety of family reasons. And then again in high school, I got ushered into a drama class, And that drama class got me into the school play. The school play got me to make a deal with a teacher who got me into a theater school, essentially. And then I went through a full year of theater school training, got offered a job to host a show, left to go host a show, came back to finish theater school, finished theater school, was like, not going to do this anymore, got out of it, had another piece of theater put in front of me that I had the opportunity to audition for, loved the material, thought it was like this really exciting opportunity to like express something my way in a very unique fashion. And like that was the time that I got hooked, like getting on stage to do A Midsummer Night's Dream through spoken word poetry and other sort of like urban soundscapes was the one that really resonated with me. So so in some ways, hurting my ankle walked me into it, but I have a feeling there was something in the universe that was like slowly trying to push me towards this, because it kept showing up, and eventually I accepted the invitation.
That's wonderful. I mean, you've had experience stage acting, and that is different, right, from TV and film. Like, um, and you don't do any more stage acting. It's
Right now I don't. I,
yes.
I'm not really a no person. I'm a bit of a not yet. Like, are you going
Yeah.
back to the theater? Not yet. I don't know when when I will, or if I will, or how I will, but certainly it's not a door that's closed. When I moved to Vancouver, it was with the intention of exploring film and television, and that's what I've been doing, and that's where I'm at right now. Prior to this, when I was living in Toronto, I was doing almost exclusively theater. Uh, when I say exclusively theater, I don't mean 12 months of theater. I mean like in a year, I might do 1 to 3 shows depending on how good the year was. And I had a nonprofit that I was running with my wife and two of our best friends that was also generating new theater, using art as a way to raise social awareness. And so we did a lot of work through that. But yeah, and stage acting is in many ways different than film and TV, and yet the fundamentals are all the same. Some little things get transferred in different ways, but it feels very much like if you can do theater, you can do film and television. I don't know if it goes the other way. I've never had to embark on being just a TV person who has to go and figure out the stage. Um, but certainly the tools that you need to get up in front of an audience and go from the beginning all the way to the end, they're directly transferable to being able to prepare for film and television.
Yes. And what do you do to maintain your stamina now? Like I think I've asked you, you played soccer. What else do you run? Do you?
Right now, I do nothing. Honestly, I my my and I'll blame it on the pandemic, although I suspect it's something else. My life is not in the most balance when it comes to uh, um, finding pockets of time to properly take care of myself. I am the first person who's going to tell you how important self care is, and right now I am the last person to take my own advice. And part of that is I, I tend to have, and this probably comes from sports, I tend to have a very singular focus. When I get something in my head that I need to do, I just have to do it. And I won't do anything else. So lately, because of the events of 2020, the restaurants I'm partnered in on need a lot of care and attention, and we're there all the time, triaging and making sure that they're up and running and doing their best. And certainly, like acting is taking up a lot of time. And then I have a 2.5-year-old, and he owns every ounce of my time that isn't at one of those other two places. So right now, as it stands, I'm currently not running and not exercising much and not meditating. These are all things that I typically would be doing and that I do love, but um, yeah, things are just not in balance, and I'm not even upset about it. I love where things are at. Eventually, like I said, they'll kind of swing back and something else will be the focus, but
Yes. And you use words not yet. Not yet. So, and tell us how about the restaurant? How can people help? Of course, we can do takeout, but what,
yeah.
what would you tell our viewers?
Um, it's a tough one. People have to do what they're most comfortable doing. The thing that I would impress on anybody who's listening, uh, as as a local business, we need you at this time, and it's not lost on us that you need us as well, and that there's a relationship that has to exist. So if you are within a community, your local requires your attention right now. If that means that you're comfortable dining in, or comfortable going into shop, do that. If you're not, do takeout. Do you have to do it every night? No, that's a lot of money and it's wild. Some of the things, so there's a thing in restaurants, right? Like people go in because they're hungry. Sure. Uh, a good friend of mine from his mentor was passed down this nugget of wisdom that when people go to a restaurant, they're usually hungrier for attention than anything else. They want to be seen, they want to be heard, they want to have an experience curated to them, and that's hospitality. And so a lot of the neighborhood places are finding ways to be hospitable, putting themselves online, making donations to the community, paying something forward. But it can't be done alone. The community needs to show up for the local places as well. And sometimes it's hard to see that because we're all having a hard time. But I
Mm.
really do believe that if we reach across the aisle and take care of somebody else, it'll give us a sense of purpose and it'll allow somebody else to reach across the aisle and take care of us. And that kind of economy of kindness will move us through. So if it's dining in or shopping, if it's online shopping or doing takeout, if it's messaging us on Instagram and just like offering a voice of support, if it's using your own platform to encourage other people in the neighborhood to do a good thing and do takeout, whatever it is, find a way to maintain an engagement with your local shops. Because the reality of this pandemic right now, from an economic standpoint, is that I don't know what the stat is, 2 out of 5 are going to close. It's going to be big. We're starting to see
Mm.
it already. And even those of us who are like really good at this are going to fail at some point because there's we're looking at scarcity. And so the messaging, I do think from a consumer standpoint, has to in some way be, I'm here with you, be here with me. And certainly for our restaurant group, that's what we say. We
Yeah.
reach into our community every single day and do different types of outreach work. But it can't be one-sided. We need our community to reach across the line and look after us as well.
Yes. And the restaurant is Oh Mercy, your restaurant?
Hey, so one of them
A
is
Mercy.
called Say Mercy, like
Yes.
like when an experience is so good it makes you say mercy. And then the other one's called the Mackenzie Room.
Wonderful. Yes. And so what is next for you? There- You're
Tomorrow,
used.
I know. Right now, I'm just finishing up on Mighty Duck, so we have about, I think there's one episode left after the one that is currently shooting, and I'm only in the last episode. I have time off right now. Um, the restaurants are next. The restaurants are every day, and
Yes.
my son is next. My son is every day, and so I don't, I don't have some like big slate of work lined up for 2021. That just hasn't really been the way my life has gone up until this point. Things kind of, I find myself at a stoplight, it turns green, and we go. So I'm gonna patiently wait for the next green light, wait for the next invitation, and head off in that direction. I'm constantly auditioning and all that, but I do kind of trust that this journey that I'm getting to be on will make itself make sense.
It is. You are a delight to talk to, and I really enjoyed speaking with you. I could talk to you all day, actually. But is there anything else you'd like to add?
Um, I don't think so. I think we covered a lot of topics that are pretty close to my heart.
Oh, you're a
Yeah,
huge sports fan too. I mean,
I'm a huge what fan?
you're a sports fan too. I
I'm a
mean, you.
huge sports fan. I I'm like NBA diehard, Raptors through and through. Um, you know, I could talk. I mean, I could talk basketball all day. Like, there's no end to that with me. And what's interesting is like, as I'm such a big basketball fan, but also when the NBA restarted, I was one of the people who was like, wrong move, don't do it. I don't want to. I just didn't feel like it was like socially, from a social responsibility point of view. I don't think it was the right thing to do from a health and wellness point of view for the mental health of the players and their family. I didn't think it was the right thing to do. I'm selfishly thrilled that they played. And I do think that the players and perhaps the teams and whatnot understood that entertainment was needed for a lot of people, and there's sacrifice, kind of involved in it, that the players were sacrificing something to make sure that they could take care of more people. And so I really appreciate it. But yeah, I was, and at the end of all of it, I'm so grateful that the NBA bubble proved to be the one that was the most organized. As we, like, proof is in the pudding. Nobody got sick. There were no outbreaks. Everything was contained. It was so intelligently done and so thoughtfully done that it made me proud to be a fan. And in fact, the proudest moment that I had was when the players looked around and decided to stop playing because the unrest in America was too great, and they really needed to look at themselves as a league dominated by young Black men and ask what message they were sending by ignoring what was happening. And in that moment, I feel like they absolutely made the right call. And of all the teams that I could rep, if I wasn't a Raptors fan yet, I have to say the way they showed up, the way they discussed it, the way they handled themselves, the conversations that they were able to be a part of as a team. There were players that led individual movements, like Jaylen Brown showed up in a way that I think was absolutely remarkable. But as a team, the Raptors didn't miss a beat. They're such a united force, and it's why we were NBA champions.
Yes. Thank you again. It was really fun. And if I don't talk to you, Merry Christmas or Happy Holidays. And
Thank you.
yeah, and I'll let Nicola know, and then I'll get images and etc. So
Awesome.
yeah.
This has been great. And thank you for letting me talk sports.
Oh, I love it.
I know that's the focus of your podcast typically, so it's a nice thing to get to discuss.
Well, thank you. And I love, it's called fitness entertainment, right? So thanks again. Okay.
My pleasure.
Bye.
Have a good day.
You too. Bye.